So we're going to keep right on rolling because
Yep.
I'm going to bring in Ally Roets, who, look, my friends tell me how busy I am. She's the
Why?
busiest woman I know.
Uh-huh.
Ally Roets is a busy, busy gal doing a lot of important. Look, she's
She's
coming
in
to
a car. What's going on?
I had to call her and she pulled over. That's how she's working us in you juggle so
Is that a
many
parent?
things.
Yeah, is that a student pickup line right there? What is it?
I think all parents juggle a lot of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But you're juggling a lot. And you know what I love about you is that you don't only look out for your own kid, you're looking out
Yeah.
for every kid that has FSHD and every parent and family that's impacted. And so that's what I'm going to let you two talk about. I'm going to bounce, but it's a really great pleasure and honor, and I just love the work that I love supporting the work that you do, and I'm just so glad. I feel like we've become friends, and the work that you do is really important. So I'm glad you squeezed us in to your incredibly hectic schedule, and thank you for pulling over.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Ally, for again being on this platform again. I know we've talked more often, which has been kind of my wish to bring this subject up more and more and more to the point where this has to be, I think, in the front of our thoughts, and that's the early onset chapter. And we talked earlier with Jun Kinoshita about having she had like a gathering place that she kind of described where she had a bunch of different groups kind of all tied in on the website. And one of those was the Early Onset Parents Roundtable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to talk about that and how that development has been going. I know it was slow moving at first, but I'm hoping maybe some steam has kind of picked up. I know you've been in different platforms, our show, another podcast about FSHD promoting it. So how has it been going? How has the group been going?
So we've had, thanks for having me, Tim, and good to see you again. The early onset chapter, we've gotten some incredible guests lately. We've had Dr. Jones on, we've had Dr. Twill, we've had Dr. Butterfield, Dr. Harper, and they've been very generous with their time and come on and really embrace their early onset. And all of them, have said that more emphasis needs to be put on the children, and they believe the kids need to get involved in the MOVE study. We need to get some natural history so that we can understand the disease more, so that we can bring treatments to the children. And they've all said also the earlier, obviously, that the disease is treated, the better the outcome. So that's really just what we're trying to do, get recognition that there are children that have FSHD as well, and they are normally more severely affected, and then get them trial ready along with the rest of the population, so that when treatments do come along, that they're ready to receive those treatments along with the adults. So the early onset chapter has a lot of members, and a lot of people view the videos. Because we're a national chapter, sometimes it's hard to get everybody coordinated with time to attend the meetings, but it is pretty well attended. And like I said, the leading researchers and doctors in the field have been so generous with their time and their knowledge, and coming on as guests with us. And we just really want to get our kids trial ready, but also support all the parents that have questions and are going through this with their kids. And it's hard to see your kid deteriorate, and everybody has questions, and there's parents that have been there before them and that can maybe lend them some advice and some support. So that's what we're really there for, and hoping we can achieve.
What's kind of the main questions that you receive from the parents, especially maybe those that are early to the group, that they're asking more often?
Well, a lot of times it's just, what can I do? I'm seeing this in my child. What did you do? What kind of assistive devices, braces, what kind of nutrition, what kind of supplements are they taking? They're thinking about, a doctor's recommending maybe my child have a tendon release surgery. Did you go through it? How did that go? Just kind of a lot of questions about how do they deal with their kid progressing, and then also just trying to understand the disease and understand what they can do to try and help their child.
There's
because it's a complicated disease.
right.
And with the early onset, it's just kind of a rare disease within a rare disease.
Mhm.
So it's even more complicated, if you will, because it seems to progress more rapidly.
It does. It definitely progresses, I believe, right, more rapidly in children by far, right? It feels like statistically speaking too. As adults, when it's onset for me, late 30s or whatever, it's a lot different. It's been slow for kids. If it's coming early like that, it seems to be attacking pretty fast. And to me, then time is of the essence. So having everybody involved in the studies, especially the MOVE trial or the MOVE study, excuse me, is really important. And we had Michaela on earlier talking about that, how we wanted to have people get involved more and more. And I thought we were somewhere around the halfway mark, but I'm not positive now. But I'm not sure what the number is for those that are 18 and under. So, but obviously there's still a need.
Yeah, the last I heard, it was pretty low, maybe 15 to 20 kids. And Kristen and I have been really beating the drum and talking to a lot of parents. And like you mentioned with the intro, we've gone on Dr. Jones' podcast, and we've talked to you about it, about the need for getting our kids into the MOVE study just to get a natural history. And that's just kind of a fancy way of saying we need to understand how the disease progresses in children, because it is different. And until the community and the researchers can understand or get a good picture of how the disease progresses in children, they can't then go to the FDA and say, we want to try this drug with these kids, because if they don't know how the disease progresses naturally, then they won't be able to say this is the endpoint and this is the interventions that we want to make. So that's really important now that parents get involved and get their kids in these studies, in these natural history studies, so that then when a treatment is available, their kid will be able to get the drug.
Right.
Right now, there's very little data on children, which is really disturbing because, kids have always had it. They just didn't get the attention, I feel, that they deserve.
100%.
And a lot of researchers and doctors have said, they feel like the kids may hold the key to this whole thing because they do progress so rapidly. It may take 5 years of an adult to see the same thing in a kid in, 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
So if they can capture that data in a kid, then it's going to help everybody, find a cure to this disease.
So what do you think the reluctance is getting their kids into studies like that? Is it just lack of knowing it's there?
I think part of it's just lack of knowing. Part of it's lack of understanding. 8 months ago or 10 months ago, when I started this chapter, before I, talked to all these researchers, I didn't really understand what natural history was. I didn't really understand the FDA process. But now that I do, I just want to shout from the rooftops, like, get your kids involved, because when they need to understand this so that we can get treatments, and the parents need to get involved, and they need to put their kids in these studies, and we need to get them registered with the U of R registry, with the PACT, with the FSHD Society when that comes online, and get them in the MOVE study so that they have some good data on the kids so that they can get the treatments. Because right now, if losmapimod or one of these other promising treatments come along and they haven't tested it on kids, or they don't know the dosing on kids, or they don't understand how it progresses in pediatrics, they're not going to get the medicine. And I can't imagine anything worse than taking your child, going, oh my gosh, FSHD, there's a treatment for FSHD, and then taking your child there and the doctor's like, I can't prescribe it to you. I mean, that would be, I don't know, I can't imagine that.
That's almost that's almost worse than not having a treatment available at all.
Right. And so we don't want to wait, because time is of the essence with kids. My son was diagnosed when he was 6, and he was in a wheelchair by the time he was 13. I mean, it goes quickly. Yeah. So, and the sooner they get the treatments to the kids, the younger, they're more robust, their immune systems are good, the muscles that are still working, they can regenerate better because they're younger. So a lot of times they have less loss. Mm-hmm. So sooner we get the treatments to the kids, the better off. You know, if my kid would have gotten a treatment when he was 6, he would still be running around playing soccer and,
Right.
you know, and that's what I want and what we all want for all of our kids and grandkids, you know.
Do you think some of it too is you know, just kids that have something going on with them medically? It is FSHD, but since doctors don't know everything about FSHD, or parents don't either out there in the world, it's just not being diagnosed.
I think that's a big issue for sure. I've heard a lot of stories of parents having to take their child to a lot of different doctors to get the correct diagnosis. And some of it is, you know, it's a genetic disease and it is in families, and families kind of know that their kid has it, but there's really nothing they can do about it now. So they're kind of reluctant to kind of label their kid with it.
Okay.
But again, this is just my personal opinion. If you take your child in now, you can help everybody, you know, and there is something that's coming. There's a treatment coming. And I'm sure everybody that you've talked to today has said that. And
yes.
When Dr. Harper was on at our meeting last month, the stuff that he's doing is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just a one and done. And if you could give that one and done with the vector, you know, and turn off the DUX4 when the kids are young, that's amazing.
Yeah, you wouldn't even have any sign of it then.
Right. So it's amazing stuff. It's just, it takes time. And unfortunately, you know, I know with adults as well, nobody wants to deteriorate, but with kids, it just seems to go so much more rapidly. And
I mean, to me, I mean, I'm an adult that has it. We talked about this. I have 2 boys too, you know, and to be honest with you, it's just all about the kids. I mean, I'm an adult, whatever. Like, I'll figure it out. But when it starts affecting kids, and I've seen it affect kids so fast, it is just absolutely devastating. And people need to understand that something has to be done, and that has to come within that community to understand. You know, if it's the medical community recognizing FSHD faster, if it's in your family, why aren't you getting them tested genetically, etc.? There are easy ways to do that. So, you know, I'm not understanding why the hurdles exist, because they wouldn't exist in my mind, right? Let's just do it. We even talked about that with my own kids. Like, is that something that maybe I should get them tested, because this way, then if they do have it, even the gene, well, then I can throw them into the pool of the testing, at least get another number in to help the grand purpose, you know?
right. And there's a lot of kids that have it. Sorry, there's a plane going over. There's a lot of kids that have it but aren't recognized anywhere. So
yeah,
the numbers are low. It looks like it's not a childhood disease at all, when we all know that that's not the case. There's a lot of kids who struggle with it and either are not diagnosed or misdiagnosed, or the family sort of knows they have it, but they haven't been clinically diagnosed. And to get into like the U of R registry, only the parent has to, or someone in the family has to have it, and you think that they may have it, right? So you don't have to have a diagnosis at all. To get in the MOVE study, you have to be clinically diagnosed and have a parent. But clinically diagnosed just means taking them to the doctor and they're saying they have some winging or some weakness, and then have it in the family.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty low bar to get in the U of R registry and to get into the MOVE study, really, with the kids. And like you said, every person, like if all of a sudden the FDA says, oh my gosh, there's thousands of kids out there with FSH and we didn't know that before, maybe that might light a fire, you know, or do something, right? And I know Dr. Katz is writing a paper, and this is really the first comprehensive paper on early onset FSHD. She works at the U of R with Dr. Twill. And this is really the first paper, and she's taken it off of the data from the U of R registry that's been written about early onset. And that's amazing to me that it's taken this long. I mean, there's been a few papers that sort of mentioned it, but nothing in depth, not an in-depth comprehensive paper like Dr. Katz's. And maybe if that just gets out in the community, but I know that the doctors and the researchers, the one that I've talked to, they all know about early onset. They just need the parents to participate and get their kids in the MOVE study and get them and collect the data on them so that when there is a treatment, they can get it to the kids.
So what has, we do this Giving Tuesday for fundraising and this to help, fuel a lot of what we're talking about. And people always will be reluctant, not always, but a lot of people are reluctant when they're about to give that donation to a nonprofit. Where's it going? And the FSHD Society today and other days has described where that money goes. And Mark Stone earlier saying, 83 cents for every dollar goes right to the research and so forth. We've had Jamshid Arjaman talk about all the grants and things that get funded for research that they select and so forth. All this money comes from these types of events we're having today, walk and rolls, etc. So for you, what does a day like this mean? The events that you've been a part of for fundraising, this one and so forth. What does that mean to you to kind of get the word out in this capacity, and then of course raising funds?
So, unfortunately, all the research and all the trials, that they all take money. Yeah. And just this platform and, all the platform that the FSHD Society supplies to me, that provides for us to have this connection with the parents. I mean, I know when my son first got diagnosed, I didn't know anybody else that had FSH, adult or child. And now that we have this parent roundtable, there's always someone there you can reach out to. So the FSHD Society has brought us together and connected us, and we're not so alone in it. That's one thing. Just getting, Dr. Katz has asked for a grant from the FSHD Society, and I believe they're funding for her to write this paper to get the word out about the early onset and the kids. All that takes money. It takes people's time. And then just the research itself. It's just, unfortunately, however the FDA and this whole drug development process is, it just takes a lot of time and a lot of money. Yeah. And, I think for you or anybody that's affected, has a family member affected by FSH, there's nothing more important. There's nothing more important than, my son beating this thing. There's nothing more important to me. I mean, it's everything. If he can get out, and live his life and be independent, and, that's all you want for your kid, right? You want him to be happy and live a fulfilled life and try to eliminate as many obstacles as possible. And like I said, with the kids, it's just tough. They just struggle early and they struggle for a long time. And if we could eradicate this thing, it would mean everything.
Yeah. So the early onset parents roundtable, you can find information on fshdsociety.org, but looks like it's on the third Tuesday of each month, right? Where parents meet, exchange those ideas and kind of get together. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. So the third Tuesday of every month, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. We are not having a meeting in December, but we've had one every month. I think we didn't have one in June because we had the Connect, and we're not having one now in December because everybody's just busy with the holidays. And we've already got some great guests lined up for next year. Nice. And I think we're going to send out a survey soon to kind of poll the parents to find out if it's a good time, if we can change times, or so that they can attend more readily. So we're working on that as well. We're working on trying to get this natural history stuff figured out for the kids. And it's really an exciting time, even though it feels like it's taking forever. With all the stuff that's coming on board, I just wish it were yesterday. And I'm sure you do too. But, like I said, my kids deteriorated a lot in, 10 years. I can't imagine what it's going to be in the next 10 years or next 5. I'm just ready to push this thing over the finish line.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks, Ally, for joining us again. Pleasure talking to you as always. Love your energy, love your passion, not just for your kid, like Lee mentioned, but for everybody's. So thank you.
Yes, I'll die a happy woman if we can bring treatments to kids.
Absolutely.
It's so important. We got to keep fighting the fight. Let's not let them get left behind.
Right. Well, thank you, Lee. Thank you. Sorry for the background noise.
Hey, no, we could barely hear a thing. You're good. You're good. Your voice came through loud and clear like it always does.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. she always has so much important, she's always has something meaningful and important to say. And, I think it's important to point out that her son is going to age out. He'll be legally an adult by the time this work happens. So,
She's still vested.
she is completely vested.
Yes.
And all the hard work that she is doing, she works incredibly hard to push the rock up a hill and, and keep things going for early onset families, connect parents. She answers their phone calls. She organizes these meetings every month. She and Kristen Zwickau are on email and phone with researchers and always talking to people to say, how do we make sure kids are in the lineup? They do an endless amount of work. And so much of Ally's work is for all the kids that come after Sam, because she doesn't want what he's going through to be, the path for the next batch of kids that get diagnosed with FSHD. And so we started off the beginning of the day talking about what a difficult ask it is. It's hard to ask people to walk in their FSHD every day and be a part of the research and be a part of the studies and answer the questions and get the emails and do the natural history studies. It's really hard to do that with your kids. I recognize very much that, let's just let our kids be kids for a while. Why should we make them, get the diagnosis before they have to? And I think there's so much validity to that, especially when before the words were nothing you can do. But there is something you can do now.
Right.
There is power in knowing. I think there is power in owning your reality and your truth. There are things that we now know that you can do, from exercise, nutrition, supplements, fitness, to hold it off. And maybe they don't start showing signs at 12. Maybe they start showing signs at 15 or 25. Maybe we can hold it off. And maybe you can buy them a little more time. And then then the treatment will be there.
Right.
And we got to get them in the natural history study. We need the data. And I was just at a 360 with Michaela here in Kansas City a few weeks ago, and they've got about 13 or 14 pediatric patients, I think, enrolled. And they've got to get to at least 25. And the clock doesn't start ticking until we have 25 pediatric patients in. They've got to get more in. And if we can't get the data, the natural history data, on pediatric patients, it's that much harder to move things down the pathway. And, there are a couple of treatments. Scott Harper mentioned that earlier today. And there's another treatment as well where that are in development where they believe it will be more efficacious in kids and pediatric patients. But when there's no pediatric cohort, when there's not enough natural history, when there's no recognition really from an official sort of FDA standpoint, that FSHD, strikes in kids and pediatrics, it's harder for them. It's going to be harder for them to get their therapy across the goal line.
Right. And I think that's what she's worried about. Right. Ally's worried about that. And other parents should be. But I'm not quite, I don't understand, and I'm a parent. So I don't understand if it's in your family, and especially if your child is showing signs, move steps forward, because there is now like something you can do. So I don't know if that's a culture shift, if that's more information that needs to be given to the right people. I also firmly believe that there are kids that have issues that are FSHD that are probably not being diagnosed properly, just by lack of education, being rare, etc. So a lot of factors involved, but you said what they need 25 and we're at like around 15.
Yeah, 20. Yeah.
So this is a matter of 10 more kids.
I think that's right. I think they need at least 25. I might be off on my numbers, but I know it's not a massive number. Oh. It's not a huge number. It's one time a year. It's non-invasive. It's natural history. And Ally and Kristen Zwickau have been pounding the pavement with this and beating the drum on this all year. And I don't know. We just, come on, man. We got to get 10, 15 more pediatric folks in there. We really do. So we're just going to keep doing the work that we do. We're going to keep holding the meetings every month. Not as many people come live to the early onset group. But as soon as we post the video, it's
They're
gonna,
all on
a lot of people come later and watch the videos and then reach out to Ally. She takes
Okay.
their phone calls, she takes their emails, they're consuming the information. If everyone that was consuming the information signed up for the study,
Oh,
it would be filled.
to be done already.
And
You'd be
that's not,
past the
I don't
mark.
mean that in any judgy way. Some people might not be nearby a site. It might not be doable with their life. I get that.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
I just, as an illustrative number, we just
Right.
need to get, we just need to get some more folks in the study. Not only pediatrics, but adults as well. Anyone and everyone can participate in the MOVE study. And we got a long way to go. We're a little over halfway there. So, and everybody can participate in that one.